What is the role of HR in M&A, especially integration, and why is it so critical in the M&A integration process? That is going to be the question for today's video. For those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Anirvan Sen. I'm an author, creator of the much acclaimed Promise of a Business Framework, and I help businesses with their buy and build and scaling strategies. So, welcome back. Today's question is, what is the role of HR in M&A integration and why is it so important? In fact, the role of HR is so important that it is one of the most defining roles in an integration. So let's find out more in today's video and let's get started. So the first role that HR plays in an integration is that of a functional role, and the functional role is primarily divided into a few parts. The first part is HR management, and that deals with recruitment, talent acquisition, talent management, compensation and benefit management, learning and development, etc. That's the first main area of HR involvement in an M&A integration. So this is where the HR teams get involved to merge, to integrate the two HR functions. That would include the people in the HR function, that would also include the functional processes, etc. Second area is what we call HR administration and HR services. And this is where we talk about employee onboarding, exit interviews, leave management. This would also include medical benefits and other kind of benefit management that can be there. So that's the HR administration and services. Apart from that, HR is also involved in payroll integration. And mind you, payroll in an integration is a multidisciplinary effort. So on one side, you would need HR, but you'd also need finance and then technology for sure. These are the people who need to work together to consolidate the payroll. Sometimes you have an outside service provider who's providing the payroll services. So those are the first two areas, and then we have the payroll. The fourth one we look at is HR systems. This is about people data, whether it's related to compensation and benefit, whether it's related to their performance. Keep in mind that HR data often is confidential, both from a regulatory perspective as well as the business angle. So we need to deal with HR data very, very cautiously and discreetly. And that's the fourth area that HR team gets involved. Next one, which is probably one of the biggest one, is synergies management. Now, keep in mind that a large number of integration are going to have synergies, a component of which is going to be cost synergies that are dependent on people redundancies, right? So this is where HR folks have to get involved, both from a redundancy perspective, but also the other side, which is the employee retention. Some key people would be retained, so they have to be taken care as well. So in the redundancy, it's all about making sure that it is done in a very humane way, very compliant to the regulatory requirements, as well as taking into consideration the other aspects like career counseling, like outplacement support. All of those kind of things would be required, especially the ones whose roles get impacted with the integration. So you saw the first few were very specific to HR, and then we get into synergies, which is for the integration itself. But because it involved the people angle, the redundancy as well as retention, HR needs to get involved. The next few roles that HR plays is not strictly for HR people alone. However, because it's got the people angle, therefore HR managers quite often are the default choice of an organization to conduct the role in the M&A integration process. So let's look at that list. The first one we look at is change management. Now keep in mind, we're not talking about structural changes. We're not talking about governance changes, management changes. What we're talking about here is the people aspect, the organizational change, right? So this is where people get affected. There is an emotional angle. There is a question of habits. There could be other areas where people need to be moved from one zone to the other, from the old ways of doing things to the new ways of doing things. And it's a journey. It's not like you switch on and switch off and people overnight will start doing things. In many cases, especially in M&A integration, people's hands need to be held and they need to be helped with the crossing over to the new ways of doing things. And this is where an HR plays a very, very crucial role. The next one is culture. When an organization gets acquired by another organization, another company, these two companies are bound to have cultural differences. How do you bridge that? How do you make sure that people can still continue to do the work at the same time, adapt to the new culture? And that's where, again, HR plays a much bigger role in being the catalyst to make it happen. Now, strictly speaking, this is not necessarily just an HR role. And yet, because it's got such a strong people angle, that's why HR people get involved in this process. The next one is communication. Very, very important. HR people need to be involved so that they can modulate, they can tune the messaging. And in many cases, especially for the smaller companies, HR people end up crafting the message because it's going to go out to the people, whether it's a business update, announcement, whether it's people redundancies, retention, changes in policies, compensation and benefit changes. All of those things needs to be told in a way that's understood by people. It is told in such a way that it appears to come from the management in a very genuine and a transparent manner. And this is where HR again plays a defining role. Apart from communication, the other roles where HR plays such an important part is around training. Now, in an integration, there is a need to conduct a lot of training. Now, the training is not necessarily 5 day long classroom training. The training could be in terms of policy changes. The training could be in terms of new system. The training could be in terms of new structure. The training could be in terms of vision and mission and cultural orientation. The training could be in terms of the HR management, the way career development takes place, the way talent is managed, etc. So these are several areas where training needs to be provided. And guess who gets called for those? In most of the cases, it's the HR person. So training is again an important part of an integration, and HR gets pulled in more often than not. And the last one, which probably is not addressed often, and that's leadership coaching. Now, keep in mind, especially if a company is not a serial acquirer, or the company that got acquired for the first time, or at least the leadership does not have experience with M&A. HR gets pulled to provide strategic coaching, to provide mentoring, to provide counseling for the senior leaders. Senior leaders would face uncertainty. Senior leaders would face emotional situations. Senior leaders would face where they have to take some hard decisions. How to go about taking those decisions, how to make sure that it's done in a humane way, how to make sure that it's done in a structured, formalized way and not a frivolous way. HR ends up providing that strategic coaching that's required, the strategic mentoring that's required. Again, is it a strict HR role? The answer is no. Or there are other people who could potentially do it. But HR gets pulled more often than not. But more importantly, because there is a people aspect, because there is a leadership aspect, that's probably the reason why HR gets pulled into so many different roles. So let me kind of recap for you what are the different roles. So the first one that we looked at is HR management. And this is again around comp and ben, learning and development, talent acquisition, etc. The second one is HR administration and services. This could be onboarding exercise, this could be policy management, etc. The third is to do more with the payroll and HR financials. The fourth is around the HR system data and information. The fifth one I spoke about was about synergies. This was about people synergies as well as employee retention. The next one was change management, and this is more to do with the organizational change management or the people aspect of change management. The next one is culture integration. So when you get two different companies coming together with different cultures, how do you harmonize cultures? After that, we looked at communication. All sorts of communication that happens during an integration often falls in HR's lap. Apart from that, the next one we looked at was the need for training and the actual structure of providing training to the employees. And the last one is leadership coaching and mentoring. So hope you found value in this video. And if you did, then please share it with your colleagues, with your friends across the globe, and help us spread awareness on this key topic. With that, I'm signing off today. Here's to unlocking the promise of a business. Till next time, bye-bye.